Hello everyone, my name is David and I am your host of the PPL D2 Weeks of Empower Rankings. Bird, my co-host, can once again not join me because US versus Australian time zones and because university and sort of things like that. Unfortunately, that's the case for the past 5 weeks. Just really hard to schedule. But anyway, that's enough about analyst troubles. And speaking of analyst troubles, our number 12 this week has the wrong name once again. I forgot to rechange it on the Photoshop file. But I'm sorry, Slyro, you are not Richie. You are, in fact, Slyro, coaching Richie's team, the Liverpool FC, and they are our new number 12. Mostly because of just some misplays. And that seems to be a running trend against Ellie, from what I could tell, is a lot of over-predicting, a lot of sort of weird mistakes being done when they play against her, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe they're overthinking things or underthinking things, or it was weird. Early predictions with Bulu ended up messing up a little bit. Bulu could have put in a lot more work than it ended up doing, even though I got a very respectable 2-1 very early on. Didn't really have a switch in to the Tapu Bulu and went for a Zen Headbutt on the Clefable instead of Woodhammer, and all this sort of other things of over-predicting. I don't know, the team Slyro brought was interesting. I don't think it was optimized for Ellie, but the weird over-predicting and the sacking of things like Tornadus a little bit earlier than he probably should have, messing up his count on the Trick Room, all sort of combined into a not great match this week for Slyro. And if he picks himself up and it starts performing better, then yeah, he can move up and things like that. But I don't know, he's in a bit of a slump and probably still shaking off the rust. It's not his team and all this other stuff. But speaking of somebody who's shaken off the rust, Raiquin and his Nidoqueen Park Rangers are number 11. They picked up their first win, or their second win this week, and not just a second win, but an extremely convincing second win. Raiquin looked at Liam's match last week and said, Suicide lead with rocks and screens into a setup threat? I could do that. And he did. And he did it against Carson. And he used Celesteela very well. Carson sort of that was more Carson misplaying more than Raiquin playing well, but regardless, he brought a very good Celesteela set for the matchup, and he brought a very good team for the matchup, and it ended up working out for him extremely well. So props to Rai, keep it up. And right above him is somebody else who won this week, Shroom Raver, but he won due to a timeout, and both sides were kind of claiming that they would win, at least from what I could tell. Onesie did not have his side up to mine as of today when this is being recorded. Onesie's side was not up, so I don't know his thought process, especially for reasons like why there's an Articuno. I get why there's an Articuno, but like I still want to hear reasoning for it and things like that. Shroom played it quite well. He played very safe, and while he played very safe, it allowed Onesie to get a lot of toxics off onto Shroom's mons, especially his bulky ones like Araquanid and Mandibuzz. And it was all because he was really trying to save the Salazzle and let it keep doing the work it has been doing for the whole game. Salazzle got 2 kills, no deaths, but all in all, with Salazzle and Necrozma both pulling their weight and pulling through this week, winning because of a timer stall. It's not even stalling, they were clicking their moves, and it ended up being a combined war that just took forever because neither mon wanted to get crit or die. So Shroom ended up winning through that. So can I really ding Onesie for losing because of that? It's hard to judge where to place timer wins on the sort of power rankings. But Shroom played it quite well. He used his Salazzle very well. He just sort of seems to be the theme this week. All these players are using their offense very well and really abusing their sort of win cons that they decide to bring. But speaking of, let's jump over to Carson, Toxic Gaming, and his Chicago Bewares. He played against Raikou, and because of that, he ended up dropping a handful of spots on the old tier list here, and it was mostly due to him messing up with Showdown and not realizing that Celesteela got Earthquake. Understandable. Sometimes I forget what Celesteela gets. I know the first time I played it, I didn't know it got grass coverage, aside from like Giga Drain. But yeah, it's a really cool, it's a cool Pokemon. Wow. He ended up just sort of misplaying around it. He had the Scizor that could like stand in front of it and BP it to death, but then the Celesteela was pretty much at +3, and at that point Scizor couldn't really like roost stall it to death. So he managed to kill the Azelf. I think defogging in front of the Azelf was probably a better play, as there was nothing really Azelf could have done to Decidueye aside from maybe Shadow Ball, but I don't think Spirit Shackling the Azelf and then defogging in front of I think defogging was necessary. I don't think he should have attacked, I guess is the right way to put it, because he didn't want a situation like that to happen, but here we are. Yeah, so we're just gonna move on to Onesie, who brought some interesting stuff. I didn't see everything he brought, but he lost due to timer. I can't super ding him for that, so he stays pretty much exactly where he was. So moving on to Slyro's opponent, Ellie. Ellie brought a lot of cool stuff. Ellie ended up losing Tyranitar because of a phone call and not paying attention to Trick Room, much like how Slyro lost his Rotom Heat because he wasn't paying attention to Trick Room. Yeah, I think Ellie had a really good matchup this week between Conkeldurr and Roserade. Just had a lot of things that could put in the work, and they ended up doing so. And so it was just really straightforward. She could have ended it sooner, but again, with her not paying a lot of attention because of life stuff, she won. It was a 2-0. It could have been a 3-0 maybe, but who cares? It was a very straightforward game. Not a lot of hacks, not a lot of anything. Just they played their game, and Ellie ended up winning because of some over predictions by Sly, and because of her own good builds. So up next at the old number 6, we have Eric Aston Akai, who an aggressive early switch cost him. he figured that Kyle would try to save the Toxapex, whereas Kyle did not want to save the Toxapex. The Gyarados set was kind of weird. I understand that Gyarados is hard checked by Keldeo extremely well, especially Mega Gyarados, but a T-Waving Dragon Nail set just didn't seem ideal for the matchup. But who am I to judge? But yeah, it was. He just couldn't handle Kyle's offense, and like the combination of Hydreigon and Keldeo just kind of overpowered him. Misplaying around Toxapex cost him a lot of Pokemon and cost him a lot of momentum, and just some poor predictions just throughout the match, and he ended up losing. It wasn't a huge loss, even though it looks like it since he went from 3 to 6, but I guess I could touch on this. Everyone in this top 6, I don't know where to put them. They're all just kind of all over the place. I guess top 7 even, including Ellie, because her record is quite good now. But the whole top 6 is just a mess. It's a nightmare. Like I didn't want to put anybody in the first or second spot even. I just wanted to start it at 3 and just leave those 2 blank. But like, it's really difficult to sort of rank how they're doing this week because it's all super tight knit, and like whoever's won this week can be 4 next week or vice versa. It's pretty crazy, and I think that's really exciting because it means the power rankings are still relevant as we're approaching the closing weeks. It means I get to talk about more games, I get to talk about how people are improving and doing worse and this and that, and it's just really exciting. So I guess that covers Eric. sorry Eric. Maybe I'll stay on topic a bit better next week. But yeah, moving on to Liam. Liam is super lucky. He's like the luckiest player I've seen in recent weeks. He missed some whirlpools, he got para'd, he got full para'd. It's just nothing really went Liam's way this game, and RDK kind of got predicted and read super early, and Liam was in the driver's seat. He had control of the match for most of the game, and then just some unfortunate hacks just kept happening, like the whirlpool misses. Starmie is just not your friend, Liam. He's just not a friend. Just not being nice. Also, Aromatisse deciding to get paralyzed on the turn you asked it to go for Protect. Very selfish. It really just didn't think of the rest of the team and what the rest of the team needed, and decided to just get paralyzed. It's quite unfortunate, but Liam brought some really nice stuff. I think it could have worked. I think RTK sort of over-predicted himself and ended up losing his Kartana really early. He lost his Raikou really early, and like those 2 like missteps put Liam really far ahead, and just really unfortunate that RTK ended up winning because with how he won. Not saying that, not trying to take away from RTK's win, but the paralysis just kind of did it in for Liam, and it's really unfortunate. Up next we have Potato Jim. He jumped up a couple spots, not really for anything particular, just because he won, and he won convincingly, but he didn't play, so how could I rank him when he's not the one playing? If he carries Mercs 6-0 and starts getting some really strong wins off the back of it, then yes, I feel justified putting him at 4 and then even higher if he continues, of course. But he didn't play this week, so I can't really talk much about it, as well as the fact that his opponent, Amazing Chi, was not very pleased with having to play Merc, and his commentary, he didn't really have any commentary during the game, so I can't really comment on his play style compared to past. I can kind of compare it to past weeks, but like Merc's a bit better than most of the D2 coaches, so it's hard. It's hard to sort of judge these two. I kept them close together, and I didn't know, and like I said, I didn't know where to move these sort of top 6, top 7 players. They really could have been anywhere on this list, and I would still feel like they were justifiable places. So I guess I can move on to RTK, and despite me complaining that Liam was very unlucky and lost due to hacks, RTK did play a good game. He made some really poor plays early on, but he saw but after the luck suddenly put the game in his favor, he knew how to win. He knew how to take that advantage and run with it, and P2 proving why it's a really good bird. So last but certainly not least is another very straightforward game, much like Ellie's, which is Kyle, the Harlem Gloomtrotters. He really showed that he could play his offense very well, whereas I believe it was last week I kind of criticized him playing very passively against Rai, and like playing way too defensively when he should be playing more aggressively. And so he played extremely aggressively this week, and his Hydreigon and his Keldeo, his big sort of offensive threats, just put in a ton of work. And yeah, and not much else to say about that. Like, you kind of put Eric down, and Eric brought some weird stuff. Kyle did not bring weird stuff, unless you want to count Pin Missile, Merciless, Toxapex. I guess that's pretty weird. But aside from that, Kyle brought classic Kyle things and T-Spikes, and ended up winning because of it. I'm a little worried that we're approaching like the near end. Kyle's really bringing T-Spikes almost every single week, and I'm really worried that people are going to start reading that and sort of bringing more answers to it than somebody normally would, kind of expecting the Toxapex to come and expecting it to carry T-Spikes, expecting it to use T-Spikes more often, and just sort of information is very key in draft play. So the more information you're giving your opponent by consistently bringing the same thing, the more it's going to end up hurting you in the long run, in theory, right? Whether people actually take this sort of information and use it is up to them. And so that sort of wraps up this week. I will try to see you guys next week. I'm going to be away, so I don't know if I'm going to be here for the next week or two, but we will see. I will catch you guys next time. Peace.